What is going on, everybody? It is I, Ray Chan, back with another video. I know it's been a little bit of a minute, but I am back. And in today's video, and by we, I mean me, are going to be talking about the death battle that recently dropped. The Battle of the Goats, the video that I was waiting for, the first video after the death battle time skip. Yeah, that's what I'm going to call it. We're going to call it their time skip arc. It is their first battle of 2026. And well, I have some thoughts on it. So let's get into it. So, first things first, some things I want to cover that I happen to see overall at during the waiting period of the battle and even after the battle, because I decided to wait and marinate on, the battle and the analysis Death Battle gave, and kind of just look around, in the Death Battle community and kind of see what the consensus was. And I'm really glad I did, because the more, like I said, the more I marinated on it, the more takes came out, and I really just had to sit back and laugh, because apparently even this episode was controversial. Surprising, I know. And the surprising thing is that it was coming all from Yusuke stands. I'm not saying fans, I'm saying stands. The ride or die Yusuke fanboys who actually thought Yusuke stood a chance in beating Ichigo. I am talking directly to y'all. No, you were wrong, and I am so glad Death Battle humbled all of y'all. Y'all, Yusuke stands were coming in the comments way too damn cocky, way too damn confident, talking about how we weren't, or how we, as in the Bleach people who were basically making videos, predictions, saying Ichigo was going to win. And that while they do agree, they said, Yusuke was their GOAT more than Ichigo's. Fair enough. They like Yusuke's show more. Fair enough. Again, the fight's immaculate. Bleach doesn't really compare, honestly. I'll be critical about it myself. Bleach fights really do not compare to Yusuke hand throwing. It's just a night and day difference. Unfortunately, you don't watch Bleach for the fights, basically. If anything, I would say Bleach is an acquired taste. Bleach is like Bleach is like Rick and Morty for anime. Only high IQ people would understand it, and everyone else is a Goku fanboy. So, but I'm gonna get off of that. Anyways, apparently Yusuke people thought Yusuke stood a chance at beating Ichigo, which, like I was saying, I found absolutely funny. And they, every time some YouTuber would say, "Oh, Yusuke's still my goat though, and I'm still rooting for him, but unfortunately Ichigo's gonna destroy him," which was completely true. No lies there. But every time that came up, someone's always going to be like, "Ah, oh, you ain't a Yusuke fan. Don't you know Yu Yu Hakusho existed long before Bleach did? If Yu Yu Hakusho didn't exist, then Bleach would never even be a thing." Yusuke's even, or either they would just, like I said, straight up thought Yusuke was going to run his shit. And so, anyways, like I said, I don't get it. Obviously, they didn't watch. Obviously, they didn't watch the videos they were looking at, or taken any of the information that they were being given. But hey, what can you do when people have the blinders on, huh? But outside of that, massive Bleach upscales all around. This video retroactively wipes out the Naruto versus Ichigo video. It retroactively wipes out Madara versus Aizen. It retroactively wipes out, well, this one here, because what else does it wipe out? Well, I guess this is where it stops, because this is the only Bleach fights. But either way, we got the upscales we needed. But my only contention is, though we have the upscale, Death Battle went a very roundabout way of going at it, where they basically had, in my opinion, a very, very easy layup in order to secure very simple scaling of the Bleach universe. And they decided to go with a different method. I'll let them explain that, because they can explain it better than I could in their own words. And I'll just, like I said, talk about why I don't really like it And then for some parts of the Yusuke side, I'll talk about it and some things that I even come to learn.
But at his peak, he beat Yuhabak, who could destroy several realms, which is far more impressive than just one.
To be fair, Yusuke also beat Yakumo, who could threaten 2 realms at the same time, pretty close to Yuhabak's threatening 3.
And Yusuke far surpassed Yakumo afterward. The gap between him and Sensui alone was 10 times. So there could be an argument for Yusuke's power surpassing Ichigo if 3 realms was truly Ichigo's limit.
Fortunately for Ichigo, it's not. Yuhabak was also gonna destroy the Garganta, which has at least 29 pocket dimensions inside it,
each containing at least a planet and star, much larger than Yusuke's planet-sized worlds. Plus, Ichigo matched Yuhabak in True Shikai, without his additional boost from Half Hollow and True Bankai.
As always with
All right, so there you have it. That was basically their justification for scaling Ichigo over Yusuke, where basically they said Ichigo can destroy or scales to someone who can destroy more realms than Yusuke, which is very, very vague in my opinion. Like I said, they had the world's easiest layup to explain, Bleach scaling properly because, as I said, I never said, but I'm saying now, I keep saying as if I'm talking in the future and shit. I really need to slow down. So, but like I said, this is a ramble. I don't script this. So all of this is just off top of my head. So y'all just kind of got to deal with it. But anyways, slowing down, they said Ichigo scales to someone who can destroy more realms than Yusuke. But they were super vague about what's exactly inside of those realms. And even if they weren't super vague about it, they literally just straight up call the size of Yusuke's realms planet level. Okay, so when it comes to Yakumo threatening the human realm or whatever in the nether realm or whatever, to them apparently those are only planet size. So at A class, then they're basically saying Yusuke's only planet level, I guess, and then they're above planet level in S class, which I agree. I definitely buy that Yusuke can most definitely pop the planet. Even as Sensui was concerned about popping the planet due to releasing too much power. And so other S classes, higher S classes, you only get higher in the planet level. And I know that there was another statement or in there where they talked about being a threat to the human realm, kind of like how in Bleach, when talking about realms, they don't ever refer to the planet or anything like that. But I would say for Bleach, in another video of mine, where the Vanki one, where I talk about how that's kind of advanced argumentation, where you really have to look at the context of what they're trying to refer to when they say a realm. But generally, more often than not, they're talking about the realm as a whole. But for Yusuke's case, we actually have specific distinctions, like they mentioned for Genkai, where she was telling Yusuke, if you got bored of this world, you could just destroy it, and I couldn't stop you. And again, in the case of Sensui, he was trying not to destroy the planet itself, okay? So we really can't assume they're talking about popping stars or universes when everything seems to relate to the destruction of the world itself, the planet, which is why I agree, like I said, planet level Yusuke. But apparently I have heard that there are metas that people try to use for universal Yusuke, which I'm pretty sure that might be where they get coming from that human realm, because like I said, they're trying to basically extrapolate Bleach arguments and use it for Yusuke to try to make him equal to Ichigo, which is kind of what it sounds like what they Death Battle did as well. And in my opinion, I think they only did that so that it doesn't seem like as big of a stomp as it really is. But when they ran down the analysis, Ichigo took all 3 sections and only tied with 1. So like, if that doesn't tell you how much of a stomp it is, I really don't know what is. It's just not fair. Now, what do I mean when I say that Bleach had a really easy layup in proving they were stronger than Yu Yu Hakusho? Well, what I mean by that is the fact that in Bleach, we have a more established structure of the cosmology, and we also know what's in said cosmology. We know that in Soul Society they have starry night skies. We know that in the human realm they have the concept of the zodiac signs. They have space exploration, and they have a book on the constellations. So space is a very well known thing in Bleach, and it's also a very known thing in the Soul Society. And so already at best we can instantly say that each realm is at bare minimum solar system, multi-solar system in size, and Hueco Mundo would just scale to it because three realms. So but this is usually the evidence that we Occam's razor into saying that obviously the intent is to say these are universes, each in their own right. Each of them have separate space times. They're disconnected from each other, so they have their own timelines. They exist in their own spaces. They can't exist in the same universe, as people will try to tell you, because physical matter and spiritual matter can't exist on the same plane. Not happening. So that is why I would say it was the easiest slam dunk of a lifetime. Now, they did bring up the Memory of Nobody's Valley of Screams, which is why I say it's a weird roundabout way of getting Ichigo over Yusuke, because those are from the movies, right? And well, technically, those movies are canon, okay? So we can't say those movies aren't canon because it was referenced in the anime, I believe, or either in the manga. Like I said, I'm just going off top of my head, but the Memories of Nobody movie is canon. And I know Von Key brought it up in his Bleach movie, and I kind of brushed it off where I'm like, no one really uses Bleach movies to scale, but apparently Death Battle does, because they also took the Hellverse movie as canon. And as far as I know, a lot of Bleach scalers, we as a community, we've kind of dismissed that. So no one really brings up Hellverse when trying to scale it because we don't know anything about it. And even more so, Kubo had dropped a one-shot chapter about Hell. So obviously, it seems like the Hellverse movie kind of just got a soft retcon. Like, we don't really we're not supposed to really acknowledge it, but I guess we can for Death Battle. So whatever. That's just more upscaling for Yusuke. Why do I keep saying Yusuke? More upscaling for Ichigo at the end of the day. And I am all here for it. Now, back to the Memories of Nobody. What they used to say that Ichigo's peak wasn't just three realms, while Yusuke's peak was only two realms, because again, destroying, I guess, the spirit world or the nether world and the human world, or whatever you want, whatever they're destroying. There's only two, but even in those two things, we really don't even know what's in them. We know what's in Soul Society, and we know what's in the human realm, which is why we can say it's bigger than what Yusuke offers. Sure, for Yusuke, we can probably say that he also exists in a universe, but he has absolutely no scaling outside of a vague human realm statement that he's a threat to the realm. So dismissed. But again, I keep getting sidetracked. Memories of Nobody. So they used the Valley of Screams, where they said that those things contain a star in them, and that there's like a whole bunch of them. And so like 25. So 25 star containing realms exists in the Garganta, which Yuha can destroy, which is true. I've heard arguments that apparently Yuha wasn't going to destroy the Garganta, which just goes to show that people don't really read Bleach and know what they're talking about, because actually he was going to destroy the Garganta, because that was an entire point brought up between Yukio and I believe Ganju, where Yukio, after dropping everybody off, traveling through the Garganta, they showed the picture of it, that little black cube thing. That was Yukio's box, I believe, that he was carrying the gang through. And so, after he drops them off at Yuha, he's like, all right, I'm not fighting. I'm chilling here in the Garganta because it's safe. And Ganju's like, you're stupid. If he wins, this will get destroyed too. So it actually is going to be a true cosmology wipe, nothing is going to be spared. The Garganta, the Don Guy, the Three Realms, all gone. And all of that combined is just bigger than the Yusuke cosmology, Yu Hakusho cosmology. Even if we do say those two realms are universes in size, Yuha is still at the end of the day affecting and destroying more, minus the Valley of Screams. Just the fact that we're including the destruction of the Garganta in of itself just proves that Yuha's range of destruction is bigger. Because, first of all, the Garganta is big enough to contain all three realms, and it contains the Don Guy. The three realms are all of a space time. The Don Guy is its own separate space time. And then the Garganta has a space time unique even above those things. So it's just layers and layers and layers that Yusuke just has nothing to compare to, which is sad. But hey, what are you going to do? Classic power scaling, old timey anime power scaling, I guess. But there is one thing for Yusuke that they did bring up, which I kind of had to have a chuckle at. And I'll see about bringing up the clip here.
Even if it meant absorbing the power of a small star. Thanks, Denkai!
Our sun has an average luminosity of 380 septillion watts, or joules per second. Small stars like red dwarfs output about 1/10,000th of that. So this spirit orb's energy per second would equal about 9 million megatons of TNT.
Enough to send Taguro to the grave.
See what I mean? I kind of just had to sit back and chuckle. It's stuff like this that kind of leads me to believe that Death Battle was basically trying to scale Yusuke as favorable as they could, just for the sake of it not looking like an absolute slaughter in Ichigo's favor, unfortunately. But again, Yusuke fans, he's my goat too. His fights, immaculate. I love him, but it's just a stomp in Ichigo's favor. I'm sorry. Oh, and one more thing before I forget, and to wrap up this little ramble on my thoughts of the overall video, mainly just focusing on the scaling. I'll give my thoughts on the animation at the end. I can do that. But basically, the speed. So the speed, they brought up the shockwaves generated by the Soul King, and they kind of used that as their basis of speed for Ichigo. Although when it comes to light speed stuff between the characters, I've already gone over the Bleach light speed metas in a previous video of mine, so I would recommend giving that a check so you can already see my takes on that. So I'm really not gonna give too much time going over it, but I will say I do buy the Yusuke lightning speed meta more than I do for like Ichigo's lightning speed, with the main difference being that the data book only compares his speed saying like lightning. Again, kind of like what are some other examples? I don't know. I can't say the Raikage because I believe it does say he rushes at the speed of light or he's approaching the speed of light. So I can't even use him. So I'll just stick with Ichigo. So yeah, it's a simile. No, I know. Vonki again, where he brought up the novel example, where he tried talking about how the realms are planets because the novel states it, despite the fact that the novels say can be likened to planets. So again, more flowery language using more similes and metaphors. So it's not exactly saying his speed is verbatim lightning speed, unlike something like the Light Fang, where it explicitly says, oh yeah, this is light speed. Or Suzaku's example that they used in Yu Yu Hakusho, where he's just manipulating natural weather phenomena, calling lightning to him, forming it into a weapon, and shooting it. Now, some might squint and say, but all that theatric, wouldn't that decrease its speed? And yeah, it's whatever. I buy it, okay? Lightning speed Yusuke, while he's only, what was he? Was he only a D class at the time? Or maybe C. C or D, lightning speed Yusuke, that's pretty good. I like that. So light speed Yusuke, again, I also would buy it because, again, we got to make it somehow comparable in speed, somehow charitable. even though at the end of the day in the analysis, they just said it was completely gone in Ichigo's favor by the time the Soul King came around. And I believe they tried the whole Lightspeed thing, anyways, was trying to compare their beginning of story or like their weaker versions to Lightspeed, where I think it was like using that meta where they're like, oh, well, the spirit gun goes in a straight line and it bounces. So it has properties of light, but they counter that by saying, oh, well, Ceros, those are light too because the data book says so. But like I said, I've already gone over my stance on that, I believe, in the Lightspeed video. So again, recommend you would check it out. But other than that, I would say a good, it was an okay battle. It wasn't anything too major. I would also like to say I think they probably could have done more with the finisher because, like I said, overall, I think they're trying to be very charitable to Yusuke, but at the same time, in the fight, I also think they were kind of referencing the fact that in Bleach fights, it's usually just Ichigo getting his ass kicked, and then somehow at the end, he just turns the tables by powering up enough times and he wins. Kind of like the Grimjaw example, where first fight, he's getting his ass kicked even with his mask on. Round two, he's kicking Grimjaw's ass, which I think is really funny. Where so like Yusuke was kind of basically dominating the fight, and then Ichigo's like, okay, final form, boom, I win. So that's kind of interesting take on that. And they also in that little clip that I showed where they talked about Ichigo's power, they showed the realms breaking in the fight, which I like because again that's from the Memories of Nobody movie and so I like that feat because again it would have been an easy layup to explain how the Bleach realms are set up, which is again it circles back to why I think they should have gone into what exactly is inside of the realms. Like again, I know for Earth Soul Society we can say it has sun, moon, star, same with Yusuke, but it also has other things to it, all established in that single realm. So the fact that they showed the clash of Ichigo and Yusuke's fight, destroying or breaking apart those realms or whatever, that's basically like two universes getting poofed right there. But they didn't exactly explain if these realms are universes. Again, they just kept it vague. Unlike for say Madara versus Aizen, where they just call the realms planets, which oy vey. So like that's why I'm like, bro, this was like the world's easiest layup in the world. If you're gonna link Yusuke to Universal, then just do that then. But they didn't. They said that Yusuke's realms are planets. So I know for a fact that they're not going to try to call Ichigo realms planets when again they did that last time in the Madara v Aizen. So it's kind of like I said, it's all very vague, like Bleach, which is again very ironic and very funny to me. Sounds like I don't know if this is intentional irony or if I'm happening to pick up on the irony as I talk about it. I like to think that I'm happening to just pick it up as it goes. Like this is all unintentional irony. And if it is intentional irony, then bonus points for me. Thank you, Brian, for being smart. But anyways, I think that about wraps up the video. I just really think they had the world's easiest layup in scaling Bleach, scaling Ichigo over Yusuke. But either way, they got the right take, well, the right outcome. Just interesting ways to go about it, which isn't uncommon for Death Battle at this point. I was hoping for a little bit more, and so I guess I'm slightly disappointed. Not too terribly so, just a little bit. Again, the finisher probably could have been a bit more epic, probably could have had something gorier going on for the final defeat. The Grand Racero is a space-rending attack. I think we could have done something with that instead of just like this little shallow gash through the chest. Like I know it's kind of like a Bleach-like attack where every time they get cut, it's like these little gashes that, well, they just walk off because Shinigami are just very built different. But that's besides the point. Yusuke's not a Shinigami. So, if anything, like I said, he thought Yusuke was a hollow. And so, I guess maybe he thought a little gash would have done it. But if he's going to go into his final form, use his Grand Ray Getsuga Tensho, and bring it down on Yusuke, and as they said, a Grand Ray rends space apart, I feel like that should have done a little more. And the fact it was a giant explosion too, and Yusuke's body wasn't vaporized or something in the process, I I just feel like there was something more that could have been done with that finisher there. But that's my thoughts. What are yours? Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. Do you agree with Death Battle's takes and scaling? Also, let me know in the comments. Smash like, subscribe, and shout out to all 5 of my subscribers. I probably should have did this shout out in the beginning of the video. I had the thought in mind to shout out to my 5 subscribers. So shout out to you guys, and shout out to any more who come my way. Peace.